3. Into the Fire. The siren was long dead. The old speakers, bolted to the rusted bones of a dead fire truck, had blown out long ago. Not that it would have made a difference. No one in this city cared about fire anymore. Not when there were too many people packed in the spaces built for half their number. Not when every day felt like it was already burning. Kira O'Connell braced against the violent jolt of the truck beneath her, brakes shrieking like a wounded animal. Their so-called fire engine was a Frankenstein of rust and stolen parts. Its patched tank barely holding enough water to matter. The hoses leaked, the ladder had to be cranked by hand, and the engine stuttered like a dying thing. Still, it was the best they had. Boston was drowning in its own people. Thousands clogged the streets, spilling from crumbling buildings, scouring through garbage, bordering over nothing. No one was in a hurry to move out of the way for fire that wasn't their problem. Kira leaned out the window, scanning the chaotic mass of humanity in front of them. "Move!" she shouted. "Fire response!" Nothing. A few people glanced up, blank, unbothered. A man hawking wilted vegetables from a rickety cart barely looked up before continuing his sales pitch. A woman in a tattered jacket stepped into the street, daring them to hit her. The rest, they didn't flinch, didn't turn, didn't care. No one cared. No one had cared for a long time. Kira slammed her fist against the rusted door. "Damn it! We're not gonna make it!" "Hold on!" The driver, a stout man everyone just called Duke, rammed his foot against the gas. The engine coughed, tires shrieked, and the truck lurched forward in a jerking spasm. Bodies scattered at the last possible second, some cursing, others throwing half-hearted kicks at the metal. They were close now. Kira could see the smoke curling into the sky, thick and black, smothering the skeletal remains of a once thriving district. The fire had sunk its teeth into an old apartment block, devouring it floor by floor. Boston had already rotted, but now it was burning too. A scream tore through the air, sharp, raw, real. Not just another street fight, not just another desperate plea swallowed by the city's indifference. Kira grabbed her gear, what was left of it. The jacket, scorched and patched more times than she could count, weighed on her shoulders like memory. The helmet was old, the visor scratched the hell, and the oxygen mask was more for comfort than function. It wouldn't last long in that inferno. It didn't matter. She had to go in. The moment her boots hit the pavement, she was moving. Instinct took over. She didn't need orders. There were no orders here. No real fire departments. No chain of command. Just volunteers who ran toward the flames because if they didn't, no one else would. The heat struck first. It always did. Not warmth, but weight. A force. The fire wasn't just burning, it was breathing, alive, resisting her intrusion. Smoke swam through the air, thick and bitter. It clung to her throat, to her skin, reaching into her lungs with something that had no name but always left a taste of death. She barely noticed. Fire had been a part of her life for too long. She had been 8 years old when she learned how to move through it, when the walls of her childhood home had become a cage of flame and smoke, when her mother, once a firefighter herself, had succumbed to her demons with drink and let a cigarette slip from her fingers. Kira still remembered the way the heat crawled up her legs, searing through thin cotton. She had known, somehow, that panicking meant death, that she had to move low to avoid the worst of the heat and smoke, that she had to find her little brother, had to get him out. She had known how to stop, drop, and roll when the fire reached her. She had known how to find pockets of air in the thickest smoke. And she had knew, even now, that she could predict the fire's path. It was a sixth sense, a gift, a curse. She pushed forward, past the collapsed entryway, past the twisted metal and burning drywall. Bodies littered the floor, barely recognizable as human. The stench of burning flesh clawed at her throat, inescapable, but she didn't stop. Couldn't. Movement caught her eye. A memory seized her, sharp, unrelenting, her mother's silhouette, flames curling around her, an outstretched hand that never reached hers. But not this time. It was a child, a boy, small, coughing, clinging to remains of a shattered bed frame. Kira didn't think. She grabbed him, tucking his body close, shielding him as best she could. His breathing was shallow, rapid, terror in its purest form. "I got you," she murmured, voice steady even as the fire snarled around them. "Just hold on." The way out was a blur of heat, smoke, and instinct, every second a fight against the consuming fire, against the weight of exhaustion pressing down on her limbs. Air hit her lungs, sharp and cold. Her legs buckled, muscles screaming in protest. She had pushed too hard, moved too fast. For a second she let it in, the exhaustion, the weight. Then she shoved it down and stood. The night rushed in, cold and sharp. As she stumbled free of the inferno, the child clung to her, his tiny fingers digging into the fabric of her ruined jacket. He was alive. A small victory in a city where victory was rare. Duke was waiting, his face lined with sweat and soot, his jaw tensed, lips pressed together like he was swallowing whatever words wanted to escape. Finally, he let out a breath. Feels like a goddamn funeral march. He looked at Kira, then at the child, exhaling slowly, like he needed to believe this was still worth it. He wasn't her captain. There were no captains anymore. But they had been doing this long enough that words weren't needed. She followed his gaze upward, across the street. A woman knelt beside a motionless child, shaking his small shoulders. Her lips moved, pleading, but there was no sound, no movement, no help coming. A projection burst to life, swallowing the burning building whole, draping its neon paradise over real-world destruction. The fire raged beneath it, windows bursting, embers spiraling upward, lost in the artificial glow. Enter the ultimate dive. The image was impossibly clear, unnervingly vivid. A world of sprawling green fields, endless blue skies, so pristine it felt like an insult against the charred ruin below. Live in paradise before you die, it read. In the center of it all, smiling like a goddamn vacation rep, was the depiction of the AI that would control the dive. Gameweaver. Hands outstretched, welcoming, like a priest offering last rites to the dying. You're doing it, aren't you? Duke's voice was quiet, tired. The dive. Kira exhaled, fingers brushing over the lighter in her pocket. The old one, the one with the faded four-leaf clover, the one that lit that fateful cigarette that night. I have to, she said. The city is already on fire. No one even notices anymore. Her fingers tightened around the lighter in her pocket, feeling the warm edges of the clover. If I can survive the dive, I can make them see again, make them care again. Duke was silent for a long time, then reached into his pocket, pulling out his own Game Pass. He turned it over, watching the way it caught the neon light. I got mine, he admitted. Still don't know if I have the balls to use it. Kira glanced back at the fire. Smoke rose endlessly towards the heavens, sweeping up what was left of the city. Boston had long since given up on saving itself. Well, she said, you've got one more day to decide.